Alright, fellow readers, I'm really excited for this video because I grew up on VHSs. I was an early 2000s kid, and so it was like the end era of VHS, and my favorite VHS tape that we had was Peter Pan, and I watched that bad boy so many times. I have most of the movie memorized. Haven't watched it in a while, but I'm sure if I watched it again, I would be saying along with the characters what they're saying. So I pop that in, rewind it of course, and then watch as Peter Pan, Wendy, Tinkerbell, Captain Hook, Smee, all the iconic characters have the time of their life. And that was kind of my first introduction to what like a fantasy world could be. So of course I was like, this is amazing. And that kind of opened the door to other different fantasy, whatever. I just wanted to go to Neverland. And that was the pure innocence that I saw that story with. It wasn't until recently I saw a post. It was a trailer for a movie called Lost Girls. So basically the movie takes on a darker twist and Peter Pan is the villain. And I was like, wait, that's not right. Peter Pan is just this guy who steals children, like he's fine. So looking at the original book by James Matthew Barrie, not Perry, James Matthew Barrie. I mean the book, I couldn't find anything too off about it other than the fact that the story is really just about how Wendy realizes it's time to grow up because, you know, Peter Pan's like kiddish and she's like, can you stop? And she's like, oh wait, maybe I need to be an adult. But anyways, but in the play, there's this one line, I'm gonna find it real quick. The play was also written by James Matthew Barrie. I guess this resource is telling me it's the book. I'm not sure which. I haven't read the book just because I'm a little scared to. So it says the boys on the island vary, of course, in numbers according as they get killed and so on. You know, how they do. And when they seem to be growing up, which is against the rules, Peter thins them out. Peter, what are you doing? So another fun, interesting thing that I read was in the play they had to add the pixie dust part to the flight because there were kids jumping off furniture constantly and having to go to the hospital. There were so many hospitalized kids because of this play because they wanted to fly. Who does that? What kid is just gonna jump off a bed and fly? Like, that's not possible. Happy thoughts, happy thoughts, happy thoughts. I can believe I can fly. I believe I can fly. You know, I'm good. I'm good. We're gonna move on though. So basically, what I want to do in this video is I have read quite a few, and by quite a few I mean 3. That's a few. 3's a few, so we're good. 3 different reimagining novels of the Peter Pan story, and I'm going to talk about them, what the premise is, because they're all pretty different, just in case you two are also very interested in Peter Pan lore. I would love to share what I thought about these books and if they were good or not. So, first one I'm going to talk about, I actually read like 2 days ago. It is called Wendy Darling by A.C. Wise. Wendy Darling. Check out my Kindle. Can we all just appreciate the Starry Night vibe that we've got going on? But Wendy Darling by A.C. Wise, this was my least favorite out of the 3 that I'm going to talk about. So the premise of this one is Wendy is an adult at this point. She has a daughter named Jane. And the very first scene that we're introduced to is Wendy waking up saying he's here. Peter Pan's here. So she goes to her daughter's room and sees Peter Pan saying, hi Wendy, it's been a while. And Wendy goes, hey Peter, that's not Wendy, I'm Wendy. And then he's like, well, why'd you have to go and grow up? So because how he said that and like the words that they used to describe him, we already know Peter Pan in this book is going to be the villain. That's the most important thing to remember. And so he snatches Jane and takes her away. So there's 2 points of view, 4 different storylines that we jump around to constantly throughout the book, which is one of the reasons I deducted the point. It was a lot to keep track of. First, we see Jane's perspective on the island with Peter Pan. We see Wendy's perspective when she was on the island with Peter Pan as a young girl. We see Wendy as an adult going to find Jane on Neverland because she can still fly, you know, like you do. Ooh! And then we also see Wendy back like 7 years ago at a mental health hospital. So she's over there. I would say that the psychiatric hospital did not need to be a storyline throughout the entire book. It was really boring. We would be in high speed like scenes in Neverland and then just jump back to the hospital. And I feel like you could have had a few flashbacks to the hospital, but we got the gist after like the first couple chapters. We didn't have to keep going back there. They're insane. They're super mean to her. She is not actually crazy. She did go to Neverland, but they beat her up anyways and all this crazy stuff. And can we talk about for a second the fact that I am wearing a Wendy's bow? Wendy's bow! And we're also not going to talk about how difficult it is to get a bow on your head. Is it crooked? Is it upside down? It may or may not be upside down, but how cute does that look when it's right? It's good. Okay, anyways, where was I? 2 other complaints for this book. 3 other complaints for this book. 1, there were some random parts where the writing was just not great. She would have pages of just explaining something or little explanations like that were so forward. Like we as a reader, we figured out Peter Pan was evil. You don't have to explicitly say Peter Pan is evil. Like, I don't know if that's exactly it, but you get what I'm saying. Like, just a ton of explanation when you could definitely tell the story through the points of view without having to explain literally everything. Like, we're getting it, we're understanding what's going on. Secondly, Jane's point of view, how old is this girl supposed to be? Because she is using some pretty adult language, and she is like psychoanalyzing the situation of the kids. She's got some really in-depth views of the human nature and how they're feeling and all this stuff, and I'm like, that doesn't, like, there was no difference between Wendy's point of view as an adult and Jane's point of view as apparently a kid. They never tell you how old she is, but obviously she's got to be old-ish. I don't know. No 13-year-old is going to be saying some of the things that she was saying. Thirdly, there was no Tinkerbell in this story. So can we just take a moment of sadness for the loss that was? And then secondly, Captain Hook didn't really have much of a role, which is just absurd. But anyways, the ending absolutely appalled me. I'm not gonna say what happened because I don't know what happened, because it just kind of ended and we got almost no explanation on anything. So apparently this author wrote a short story of this and people really loved it, and I think I'll read that short story at some point, because you should just keep it a short story. If you're not even gonna end the book, keep it a short story. We're moving on. All right, the next one is also one that I read. I read this one yesterday. I actually started this one as a teenager and I did not love it. I didn't even finish it. I think I got like 2 chapters in and I was bored because I was a quitter. But I'm glad I went back to it because this was really good. This is probably technically, like, story-wise, completion-wise, the best one that I'm going to talk about, and probably the one that I'd highly recommend. I like the next one I'll talk about too, but this one was really good. So the interesting thing about this is we're seeing this story from Tinkerbell's perspective, and this, yay, she's back. She's in it again. The iconic character that Tink is, you can't bring her out of the story. So yes, so Tinkerbell is telling a story. She can't talk, so she can't like interrupt the main character. She tries, and that's really funny, but she can't talk, so she's just a silent observer of Tiger Lily and Peter Pan's love story, because there is kind of like hinted at, like always in a lot of these hinted at like a love story between Peter Pan and Tiger Lily and whatever. So we're mostly seeing Tiger Lily. The weird thing about this one, which is cool, I think this one is the most believable, just because the island is on Earth. It's just really hard to get to, and so shipwrecks sometimes get there, and that's how they bring like the pirates there, and that's how they got there. So it explained like the world existence. It wasn't like in a star, but so of course that's not exactly how Peter Pan is originally, so obviously it took some liberties with that, and I mean I liked it. I thought it was interesting. It gave off Lost vibes, but there's also, so on the island, like, they can't age, and they're afraid that when foreigners come in they'll bring the aging disease, and so that, I thought that was a cool little golden nugget in there for us. But Tinkerbell is by far the best character. She's super funny, spunky, cute, adorable, and it is cool that you get to see the entire book through her eyes. So she zooms back and forth between the two characters and then tells what she's observing. So that was cool. And we also don't really see the thoughts. I mean, we can kind of see the thoughts because she can read the thoughts a little bit, which was interesting. I mean, I guess you kind of have to do that. The only complaints I'd have about this book is that it is really long. I think it could have been shorter. There were some storylines that really weren't necessary. I wasn't sure where they were going with it. There was a Englander that came into the tribe and totally messed everything up. And I guess it was an okay story, but I was like, can we get back to Peter Pan and Tiger Lily? Like, what are we, I don't know. So I thought that, I mean, that was a little prolonged. I think you could have gotten the point across a little easier. But, you know, I'm not going to complain. I did enjoy the book overall. You know, it was good. It was just pretty long and could be slow at sometimes. The other thing is Captain Hook is in this one. He's pretty cool in this one. And Smee, I thought it was interesting what they did with Smee's character. Smee is not the dumb goofball that we know from the movie, this little red beanie. This Smee is like a serial killer that Captain Hook pulled off the streets of London and said, hey, you're going to help me find my lost boys. This one, they also explain what the Lost Boys is and how that comes about, how that name comes about. And so overall, like, if you want to read a good Peter Pan reimagining, 100% guarantee that you would probably like Tiger Lily. I like how I said 100% guarantee, probably. You'd probably like Tiger Lily. I recommend it. All these books are young adult. Like, they could be read as a young adult. They're not inappropriate. I think Wendy Darling is more of the adult one just because of the words it uses and the agendas with it. But this these next two are definitely, like, they're all clean, they're all good, so in case you were wondering. But yeah, so I would recommend this one. All right, the last one I read a while ago. I think I was like 16. This is actually what got me started with Peter Pan reimaginings and Peter Pan lore, looking up Peter Pan fan fiction, like drawings and stuff. Thought it was pretty awesome. The book cover art for this is sick, so of course I was interested. I'd also read books by this author before. And I would like to say Lost Girl is different from what the trailer I saw was. That's Lost Girls. So, but this one definitely takes the most liberties in changing the story while keeping the characters, basically. So the premise of this one is Peter Pan, Wendy, all the characters that we know, Lost Boys and all that fun stuff, her brothers, were taken to a research facility situation called Neverland on an island somewhere, you know, it's more of a metropolitan island situation thing. I really don't know exactly how they get to it. It's been a while since I read it, but Hook is like the main doctor of it, and basically the premise is they're giving these kids creepy treatments, hush hush, weird stuff is happening, they're getting superpowers, and eventually Wendy escapes. So we come to Wendy, it's her point of view, she's a cheerleader, yah, whatever, it's fun, she's having the time of her life. Shadow monsters start to attack her. What the heck is that? So then Peter Pan and Tinkerbell come. Tinkerbell is a human. Their names are just their names. Like, they're not they aren't the fantasy characters that they were. But they all have superpowers, and most of them have superpowers, and so she does too, Wendy does too. They have to unlock those superpowers, get that going, have to fight these shadow monsters. You get to, it's just kind of cool how they, how the author put in different little fun Easter eggs of the original book. You know, the twins of the Lost Boys, one of them is a superhero who can duplicate, so that was kind of put in there like that. And so it's just cool how the powers worked into that. And so basically they're just trying to take down Neverland. And overall, like, yes, this writing is definitely more geared toward tweens or young teens, and I'm completely okay with that. I love the fun story. It was fun. I would say it is a little creepy at times. Like, I wasn't expecting it. This may be my teenage mind talking, but I was like, when they were in the research facility, I was a little scared for my life, even though I wasn't there. So it is a little horror-ish in the whole creepy hospital situation thing, and the shadow monsters can be creepy as well, but it was good, and it is more of a immature, like, storyline. like, you're just going for it for fun. If you're looking for something like super retrospective and whatever, go to Wendy Darling. But anyways, so yeah, I would recommend that one as well if you want to read. Highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun, I will say that. I haven't not read it since I was an adult, so I really don't know how the writing style is. I just remember it was enough to keep my attention as a teenager, and as we have learned, that is a lot. You have to do a lot to keep my attention back when I was a teenager, because I would read a chapter and be like, nope, bored. So this one kept my attention, had a lot of fun with it. So I would definitely recommend this one. It was good. And so yeah, so I'm probably gonna read more of these at some point. I love Peter Pan and definitely fangirled over him. We're not gonna talk about it. May have been my first TV crush. I don't know. We'll discuss it later. But yeah, I was excited to do this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.